This man was merely a rural swordsmanship instructor, yet all his students turned out to be influential figures, and all of them stunningly beautiful girls. However, Beryl had no interest in venturing out into the world. His grandfather was constantly pushing him to marry and eager to have grandchildren. But Beryl didn't even have a wife. He was completely devoted to the art of swordsmanship, dreaming of becoming a great swordsman. Yet his skill was only slightly better than the average person. Fortunately, he was quite adept at teaching, with several of his disciples achieving fame and success after leaving his guidance. One evening, as his grandfather grumbled again, and even his mother joined in questioning when they could expect a grandchild, his former student Alucia came to visit, now the captain of the Royal Knights, and also a swordsmanship instructor. She came to ask Beryl to serve as a special instructor for the Knight Corps. She presented a royal decree sealed by the king, much to the old man's excitement. He saw this as an opportunity to finally get his son out of the house, and suggested Beryl find a wife in the city, hinting at Alucia as a suitable match. Beryl dismissed the idea, reminding him of their teacher-student relationship and their significant age difference. However, Alucia blushed deeply, not seeming unwilling at all. After dinner, the two set off immediately. During the carriage ride, Beryl noticed that Alucia still kept the farewell gift he had given her, a sword. He was surprised she still had it, given that it no longer suited her status as captain. Alucia insisted it was still perfect for her. Beryl understood that to a student, a teacher always appears stronger. Alucia was eager for her rural swordmaster to come and make a name for himself in the city. That night, they arrived in town, and Alucia arranged accommodation for Beryl. The next day, she personally took him to the Knight Corps and praised him highly in front of everyone, claiming that even she couldn't match him. Beryl was flabbergasted and tried to remain humble in his response. Fortunately, he didn't need to come every day, just 3 or 4 times a month, which wouldn't interfere with his dojo work. As they were there, a young girl rushed towards Alucia. It turned out she was also one of Beryl's former students and had become a knight. The girl, Karuni, was thrilled to receive guidance from her master again. That evening, Beryl returned home alone, still in disbelief that 2 of his students had joined the Knight Corps. When he got home, he found another disciple visiting, this time a male one who had brought his wife and child. Beryl was initially pleased, but then overheard his father saying they didn't need him anymore, and told him to settle in the city and not return until he had completed his mission and found a wife. It turned out the male disciple had decided to move back to the village to settle down and could help look after the old man and the dojo. Clearly, this had been arranged without Beryl's knowledge, and his consent was irrelevant. The next day, he returned to the city, where Alucia was more than happy to have him stay at her place. Beryl, of course, could not agree to that. The immediate plan was to grab lunch. As they spent the day shopping and dining together for Alucia, it almost felt like a date. Just as she was secretly delighting in this, they encountered her rival, Serena. Alucia did not want such a person ruining her time with Beryl, but Serena insisted on seeing the man Alucia called her master. She then pulled away the map Beryl was using to cover his face, noticing a black badge around Serena's neck, indicating she was a black-level explorer. Beryl was taken aback when Serena suddenly addressed him as Master Beryl with great emotion and asked if he didn't remember her. It turns out she was taken in by Beryl as a child, but that was 20 years ago. Beryl still remembered her. Seeing the little girl he had once sheltered now so accomplished filled him with pride. Then, Serena learned from Alucia that Beryl was now serving as an instructor in the Knight Corps and was looking for a place to stay in the city. She instantly wanted to snatch her master away from Alucia, as she, being an agent for foreign explorers, knew more about inns than Alucia. She then took Beryl to a suitable residence, where he settled in temporarily after sending off his 2 noisy female disciples and began to ponder his next steps. The next day, he went to the Knight Corps, where a young man immediately challenged him, questioning why Beryl deserved to be an instructor. The man, Drought, the vice captain of the Corps, insisted on testing Beryl's skills. Alucia thought this a good opportunity for her master to demonstrate his prowess. Although Beryl did not consider himself exceptional, he had no choice but to participate, hoping not to embarrass Alucia too much. He drew a wooden sword, and Drought charged first. Beryl initially just defended, still managing to assess his opponent's technique, noting the young man's strength could break bones. To others, it looked like Beryl was merely fleeing in disarray. Just as Drought swung his sword down, Beryl's eyes hardened, and he slid his sword along Drought's blade, quickly reaching him and tapping his chin with the sword's hilt. Beryl felt guilty, as he had intended only to make contact, not to be too harsh as an instructor. However, Drought thought it was just luck, and accused Beryl of using tricks. He attacked again, more fiercely this time. Beryl sensed Drought's speed and strength were superior, but fortunately, his movements were linear, appearing like slow motion to Beryl, who easily found and exploited openings. Enraged, Drought unleashed his special move, dragging his sword tip along the ground and releasing it with a twist, creating a tornado-like effect. But the next second, he was stunned as Beryl lightly tapped his back with the wooden sword from behind. The outcome was clear, and Drought's previous disdain and arrogance turned into respect. He grabbed Beryl's hand, eagerly asking to be taught. Others looked on with admiration or shock at their new instructor. That evening, they even threw a celebration party for Beryl, with Drought completely conceding and seeking guidance in every moment. Beryl gradually adapted to city life. Meanwhile, back in the countryside, the old grandfather was talking with Beryl's disciple. The disciple, who had traveled widely, confessed he had never seen swordsmanship superior to his master's. It likely wouldn't be long before Beryl's skills would shock the world. Beryl's popularity in the Knights Order has been rising recently. Any casual guidance from him attracts a crowd. Drought respects him deeply. During a break, Karuni suddenly asked if Beryl wanted to explore the city, a chance to familiarize with the new environment. Beryl was eager. He had been an instructor for a week, but had only shuttled between the Knights' quarters and the inn. This was a good opportunity to explore. Meanwhile, Alucia was reporting on her work. If she were solely focused on mastering swordplay, she shouldn't have become the captain. It was too time-consuming, but she was determined to bring her master out. Alucia was sent to Beryl's swordsmanship dojo as a child. Her first impression of Beryl was that of a kind uncle. Initially, the newcomers only practiced sword swinging, but even the basics were taught with great care by Beryl. Next, they trained on how to use their bodies efficiently. Initially, Alucia could hardly hold an axe steady, but over time, these tasks became easy for her, and she grew accustomed to the sword in her hand. Beryl praised even her smallest improvements. Sometimes, Beryl would pick a student for one-on-one practice. He was like an impregnable wall, with no openings for attack, and could defeat Alucia in one move. Still, he praised her, noting her accurate intuition and timing. Alucia naively thought all swordmasters were like Beryl, until their dojo triumphed in a match against another, where even the opposing master lost to Beryl. It felt too easy for her, so on their way back, she asked Beryl if they were very strong. Beryl denied it, explaining that their style just happened to counter the others. He emphasized that learning was more important than winning. Alucia took the lesson to heart, but then realized she had lost her hair ornament. She hurried back to the other dojo to find it, where the students, sore from their loss, gave her a hard time, believing they hadn't used their real strength, and ganged up on her. Luckily, Beryl returned just in time to defeat them swiftly. The leader, unwilling to accept defeat, attempted a sneak attack, but was scolded by his own master, who admitted they were no match for Beryl or his students. After retrieving the ornament, Beryl quickly smoothed things over and accepted their apology. On the way back, Alucia felt guilty, thinking she had caused her master trouble. Beryl assured her she was not at fault and that he should have accompanied her back initially to avoid the dangerous situation. From that moment, Alucia's feelings for Beryl grew beyond mere respect. She was moved to tears. Eventually, when Alucia graduated, Beryl gifted her a real sword as a farewell present, claiming he had nothing left to teach her. Alucia knew her master was modest to a fault and didn't understand his own strength. Still, she accepted the sword and left the dojo determined to prove her master's swordsmanship was unbeatable. She joined the Knights Order, excelled in the selection tests, and confirmed her belief that no candidate, or even the examiners, could match Beryl's speed. Alucia topped the order and confirmed her master's unparalleled keenness and reflexes. She set a goal not to let her master fade into obscurity. Within a few years, she rose to captain and finally had the authority to appoint him as an instructor. By then, 10 years had passed since she left the dojo, and Beryl's skills were sharper than ever. Alucia wasn't meddling. She felt Beryl deserved a stage worthy of him, and she was the one to provide it. Unknowingly, Alucia arrived at the training ground, only to learn that Beryl had gone shopping with Karuni. She felt a bit upset, as she too had wanted to take her master shopping, but Karuni had beaten her to it. Meanwhile, Karuni was explaining the street layout to Beryl, pointing out that the West District was best for shopping in the city center. As for the North District, where the tourist sites were concentrated, she mentioned that only tourists from the countryside would be interested in visiting. Beryl couldn't help but think to himself, I am a tourist from the countryside. Just then, they encountered another familiar face, a girl who was also Beryl's disciple. Beryl didn't recognize her at first, but after being reminded, he remembered she was Ficelle. Ficelle had trained with Karuni during her last 2 years at the dojo. Karuni informed Beryl that Ficelle had become quite impressive, now serving as a key member of the Mage Corps. Beryl was confused. Didn't I teach her swordsmanship? How did she end up in the Mage Corps? Ficelle was there to buy magical equipment, which allows even ordinary people to perform magic. Of course, she didn't need them herself, and demonstrated some magic to her master. Suddenly, they heard someone committing a robbery on the street. Ficelle immediately stepped in front of Beryl, indicating he didn't need to act. She drew her sword, enchanted it with magic, and cast a wind blade that transformed into ropes to bind the robber. Karuni then stepped forward to apprehend the criminal. It turned out Ficelle hadn't abandoned swordsmanship, but had combined it with magic to practice sword magic. Beryl was very pleased, seeing that his disciples had found good jobs. The next morning, Beryl woke up early for a walk to memorize the routes. Unexpectedly, he was stopped by a young girl who introduced herself as Lucy, the leader of the kingdom's magic corps. Beryl was skeptical, given her young appearance. So, Lucy conjured flames from her palm on the spot, forcing Beryl to believe her. Lucy had heard about Beryl from Ficelle. Curious about the swordsmanship master who had arrived in the city, she was eager to see what kind of person Beryl really was. As they chatted, Lucy led him to an open area, explaining that she studied and researched magic daily and wanted to measure her progress by testing herself against a strong opponent. She then launched an attack on Beryl without warning, and Beryl promptly drew his sword to respond. The unexpected visitor, a young girl named Lucy, came not for a friendly visit but to fight. Beryl had no choice but to draw his sword, humbly stating he was not worthy to be Lucy's opponent. Lucy paid no heed to his words and, with a swing of her arm, gathered fire around her into a large ball that she hurled at Beryl. Beryl quickly dodged, but struggled to withstand Lucy's relentless magic assault. The fire then turned into ice, which Beryl could slice through with his sword, and took the chance to charge at the mage, intending to knock her out with the hilt of his sword. Unexpectedly, Lucy protected herself with flames and snapped her fingers, surrounding Beryl with fire. He was chased by balls of fire, his first encounter with a magician proving embarrassingly difficult. After narrowly escaping all the fireballs, giant ice blocks fell from the sky. Beryl deflected them back, but Lucy neutralized them with fire, creating steam that obscured Beryl's movements. He swiftly reached Lucy, only to be blasted away by a bolt of lightning. This was not even the full extent of Lucy's power. Suddenly, the air around her seemed to converge, signaling imminent danger. Beryl sensed a lethal attack was coming, but Lucy abruptly stopped, admitting she might have gone too far. Since Beryl hadn't struck back, she saw no need to continue. Beryl sheathed his sword and curiously asked Lucy what would have happened if he had been hit. Lucy coldly replied he would have been crushed. Despite this, she acknowledged Beryl's strength, explaining why Ficelle admired him so much. Beryl remained modest, feeling inadequate despite years of training and unable to defeat even his elderly father. Lucy's interest in him grew, and she invited him to visit the Mage Academy to test new spells she was developing. The next day, it was Ficelle who came to the Knights' quarters to deliver magic potions, and gave one to Beryl as a form of apology from the guild leader. It turned out the young girl, Lucy, was indeed the guild leader. Beryl fully believed this only after hearing from Ficelle that Lucy used magic to maintain her youthful appearance, and her real age was unknown. Unlike typical mages, Lucy continuously cast spells. Lucia then approached Beryl, actually wanting him to help train new adventurers for Serena by ensuring they had the necessary skills to handle emergencies in a cave. Beryl recalled his own first cave expedition, entering confidently but soon running home, battered by monsters. Despite his lack of confidence, his apprentices encouraged him to demonstrate his skills. as the Adventurers Guild was near the Knights' quarters. During his visit with Serena, they encountered Lucy again, an old acquaintance of the guild leader. The guild leader immediately arranged for Beryl to lead the training, despite his assistant's disapproval due to Beryl's lack of experience. Serena was upset by the disrespectful attitude, and even Lucy, who vouched for Beryl, was displeased. The assistant insisted on a duel to allow Beryl to prove his strength, citing recent unusual monster activity in the cave. Serena eagerly accepted, having waited for this moment since she and her parents were attacked by monsters on a trading journey, and her mother had pushed her off a cliff to save her life. Serena, saved by Beryl from the turbulent waters, initially stayed silent when she began living with him but grew interested in swordsmanship after seeing Beryl train. She learned quickly and became a competent swordsman, finding her talent in dual wielding as suggested by Beryl. Eventually, Beryl found her a new home, and although it was hard for Serena to leave, she did not want to trouble her master. She became an adventurer to see the world and help others using the sword skills Beryl taught her. Now, after nearly 20 years, Serena wanted to show her master her achievements. As she attacked with her twin swords, Beryl was amazed by her speed but managed to block every strike. During their duel, he spotted a weakness in Serena's technique and exploited it, defeating her with a combination of a precise strike and a sweeping leg move. Beryl proved his strength but did not consider himself superior, just fortunate to notice Serena's imperfect left-hand technique. The assistant, having witnessed the entire fight, apologized for his earlier doubts. Beryl was unbothered, but to his surprise, he ended up with the task of leading the training. He was responsible for guiding 3 novice adventurers, with Serena accompanying them into the cave. Not long after entering, one of the adventurers' wristbands lit up, signaling the approach of enemies. The trio immediately drew their swords and prepared for battle, quickly eliminating several goblins. The mission progressed smoothly, and after searching the entire cave, they all emerged unscathed with all monsters eradicated. However, Serena felt that the number of monsters was unusually low, suspecting there should have been more. As they reached the cave entrance, one person's wristband suddenly shattered. The next second, a huge monster swept through the entrance. The adventurer at the front couldn't dodge in time and was severely injured. Serena then realized that this monster was a special target, responsible for the reduced number of other creatures in the area. Beryl and Serena took some newcomers on a mission but unexpectedly encountered a powerful beast. Beryl immediately drew his sword, knowing the situation was urgent. However, aware that his disciple was stronger, he wanted Serena to fight while he treated the injured newcomers. As he asked Serena for a potion, she high-fived him and ran off to rescue the newcomers. Left with no choice, Beryl stayed to fight the beast. He continuously blocked its attacks and tried to strike at its thigh but couldn't cut through. Meanwhile, Serena carried the newcomer back to the cave. As Beryl thought of buying them more time, the beast slapped him away, injuring his arm. He discovered that the beast's weakness was its face, but since it could breathe fire, he couldn't attack it head-on. After being hit by the beast's tail swipe, Beryl cut it off. The enraged beast charged at him, but Beryl adjusted his position, grabbed its head, and soared into the sky with it. Unable to shake Beryl off, the beast landed at the cave entrance, turning the ground into a sea of fire that even spread into the cave. Realizing the danger to Serena and the others, Beryl charged forward, continuously attacking with his longsword while dodging the beast's fiery breath. He finally managed to stab the beast in the eye, but his sword broke. Just when he was out of options, Serena descended from above and fiercely plunged her twin swords into the beast's back, finally defeating it. The newcomer was safe. The group returned to report to the guild leader, who thanked them, especially praising Beryl, although Beryl humbly declined the leader's offer. After leaving the guild, Serena apologized to her master, feeling she had demanded too much of him. She hoped Beryl understood how strong he truly was. Beryl did not argue but complimented her instead, feeling proud of how excellent Serena had become. Serena, who had harbored feelings for her master, blushed, but the matter went no further for now. Since Beryl's sword broke during battle, he asked Kirani to take him to a blacksmith to forge a new one. Unexpectedly, Alucia also came along. Since the master moved to the city, she hadn't had much one-on-one time with him, having been preempted by Kirani and Serena. She was determined to help her master this time. The blacksmith Kirani chose turned out to be a former disciple of Beryl's, and uniquely, older than him. Originally, he joined the dojo to understand the feel of wielding a sword, and now, it seemed, he had achieved his dream. Kiruni wanted the blacksmith to sharpen her short sword, but was told it was beyond repair and better to buy a new one. Beryl sensed something was off. Upon asking, he realized that the short sword did not suit Kiruni. She couldn't feel its weight properly, which affected her swordsmanship. Instead, they opted for a two-handed sword, which suited her much better. Beryl then began looking for a sword for himself, impressed by the quality of weapons there. Just then, Serena arrived, carrying a large package. After a brief exchange with Alucia, Beryl inquired about her purpose. She revealed a bird's claw, hoping the blacksmith would use it to forge a long sword for Beryl. Alucia objected, insisting that as a member of their Knight Order, Beryl's sword should be their responsibility. However, Serena, with a firm gaze and tone, persuaded Beryl to accept her kind gesture. The blacksmith was thrilled with the high-quality materials and agreed to make a sword worthy of them, though it would take a week to complete. During this time, Beryl used a standard sword from the Knight Order to train the knights, and also gave Kiruni special training to adapt to her new sword, starting with basic sword swings. The master and apprentice reminisced about their early days in the dojo. That evening, Beryl went out for a drink and returned to the inn full of contentment. On the way, he brushed past a hooded child who tried to steal his purse. Beryl grabbed the child's wrist, but to his surprise, the child released flames and escaped. The child eventually entered a house, handed over the day's stolen money to a man, but then realized her necklace was missing, which Beryl had found. The next day, Beryl continued his usual training with the knights. Drought had improved significantly, though Beryl could still predict his moves. Seeing everyone working so hard, Beryl felt he must not fall behind. Drought mentioned that enhancing combat skills was a priority for the Knight Order, because a bandit group called Hakubo's Hand had recently emerged. They were cooperating with the Kingdom's Guard to investigate. After reflecting for a moment, Beryl remembered the necklace he had found the day before, and shared his experience with Drought and Kiruni. Kiruni found it strange, as magical people rarely steal, given their rarity and the security a mage's academy provides, along with accommodation and guaranteed employment after graduation. Unless the thief had magical equipment, Beryl decided to turn in the necklace at the Knight Order's Lost and Found. If it was stolen, it should be returned to its rightful owner. Although this matter seemed resolved, the thought of the child's desperate look made Beryl uneasy. On his way home, he noticed a rental sign and thought of moving out of the inn to find a suitable rental property. Unexpectedly, he encountered a girl who seemed to be searching for something. Upon seeing Beryl, she angrily attacked him, demanding her belongings back. To avoid a public scene, Beryl led her to an alley and explained that he had already turned in the pendant at the Knight Order's Lost and Found. Since the pendant was hers, he offered to accompany her to retrieve it. This was the first time Beryl had seen such an irate child. He tried to advise her against such actions, but she seemed unwilling to listen. He then used the pendant as leverage to listen. At that moment, Alucia arrived and learned the full story. Beryl couldn't hand her over to the Knight Order but didn't want to see her continue down a wrong path. Knowing she had magical talent, Alucia suggested she attend a magic academy where the state would support her. Realizing they were kind people, the girl finally revealed her plight. Someone had told her that with 5 million, magic could resurrect her sister, which led her to commit crimes for money. Beryl immediately realized she had been deceived. Alucia went to fetch Lucy. Meanwhile, the girl, hungry, was given a large loaf of bread by Beryl, softening her demeanor. She introduced herself as Freya but still planned to leave with the pendant. At that moment, Alucia arrived with Lucy. Upon hearing of a magically talented girl, Lucy wouldn't pass up the opportunity. She demonstrated her magical prowess by reheating a cup of coffee with fire magic and then invited Freya to their magic academy. Freya said she would only consider if Lucy could provide 5 million, believing she had witnessed her sister briefly resurrected. Though Lucy knew resurrection magic didn't exist, Freya insisted, claiming the person could keep her sister's body from decaying for a continuous payment, aiming for a full resurrection with 5 million. Lucy dismissed it as a mere illusion, stating there was no such thing as resurrection magic, but people often believe what they want to believe. Freya was still reluctant to give up. Lucy reminded her that if the man had lied, it meant that her sister's soul had been tarnished and insulted. She asked Freya to reveal the man's name, promising to confront him personally. If he truly possessed resurrection magic, Lucy was willing to provide 5 million for Freya. Eventually, Freya agreed and named the man as Hakubo, who was likely connected to the bandit group the Knight Order was currently investigating. However, the Knight Order's presence was too conspicuous, so Lucy only took Beryl with her. On the way, they learned more about Freya's situation. Led by Freya, They navigated to an ordinary-looking house. Knowing there was a secret door, Lucy still chose to smash through the front door directly. She left Beryl to handle the minor thugs while she went straight into the enemy's lair. She quickly confronted the boss, who recognized her immediately. The boss then released ice magic, which was trivial for Lucy and revealed to be mere tricks using magical devices. Hakubo used these devices to animate corpses and deceive Freya. An angry Lucy quickly subdued him. Outside, Beryl easily knocked down all the minor thugs with a wooden sword. Soon, Lucy emerged with Hakubo and confronted him in front of Freya, asking if resurrection magic truly existed. Hakubo admitted it did not, shattering Freya's hopes. With the matter resolved, Lucy returned to call the Night Order to arrest the culprits, leaving Beryl to watch over them. Freya first went to check where her sister's body was stored and found it gone, leaving her with only the necklace. Unsure of her future, Freya was distressed, while Beryl, feeling a responsibility as an adult, believed it was his duty to protect children. That night, the Night Order arrested all the culprits. The boss had many high-level magical devices he shouldn't have possessed, suggesting someone else was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Details would emerge after interrogation. After the Night Order left, Lucy offered to temporarily care for Freya. Everyone then went their separate ways. However, the next moment, a mysterious figure hidden in an alley shot a beam of light into the carriage, killing Hakubo instantly. It turned out that Hakubo's body had been implanted with a magical device beforehand, facilitating his silencing. The corpses were taken to the church, soon to be used as materials to recreate divine miracles. After today's training, Beryl was suddenly called away by Alusha, who informed him about Hakubo's death during an escort mission. His body exploded suddenly, and the guards found a suspected magical artifact among his remains. His subordinates had no idea about the whereabouts of the bodies. The situation was growing stranger. The magical artifacts found on Hakubo were not something ordinary people could possess. There was definitely someone pulling the strings behind the scenes. However, this wasn't Beryl's concern. He went to his disciple to pick up his new sword, making Karuni extremely envious. The two prepared to return to the training ground to test it. But at the door, they ran into Lucy, who was waiting for Beryl. Lucy took Beryl back to her large mansion, discussing Freya's situation on the way. She was encouraging Freya to join the Mage Academy. However, this visit was not to see Freya but to speak with a priest from the neighboring country's Sven church. It turned out the magical artifacts on Hakubo had been given to him by a bishop of the church in exchange for collecting bodies. To keep this secret, the church likely used a remote-controlled magical artifact to kill him. Beryl asked the crucial question, why did the bishop want to collect bodies? Lucy explained that what they call magic, the church refers to as miracles. The most sacred of these miracles, performed by the true god Sven, is to resurrect the dead. However, the priests don't believe in this, but the bishop might have wanted to use the bodies to study this miracle. The bishop was currently at the church in the North District, where they were. The knights planned to summon him as a witness the next day. If he cooperated, all would be well. But if he fled back to his homeland, things would get complicated. Beryl had a bad feeling about this, and, as expected, the priests requested that Beryl personally capture the bishop. Given the international implications involving two countries and the church, Beryl, being a free agent, was deemed most suitable for the task. Thinking he might find Freya's sister's body, Beryl hesitantly took on the troublesome job. Returning home, Beryl unexpectedly ran into Freya, who had just come back from outside. Seeing Freya looking more spirited, Beryl felt relieved. However, Freya seemed a bit defensive, questioning why he was so nice to her. Lucy answered for Beryl, saying it's natural for adults to take care of children, even if the child had been naughty before. Beryl noticed Freya was overwhelmed by such gentle treatment and comforted her, saying children shouldn't worry about these things but should do what they want to do. The adults here wouldn't deceive her, so she should accept everything with peace of mind. If Freya felt indebted, she could treat him to a nice meal when she grew up. After saying this, Beryl left. That night, Beryl went alone to the North District Church and found people apparently preparing to flee. He rushed out to stop them, but was blocked by the church's knights. Despite them chanting for divine strength, which seemed to enhance their physical abilities, they were no match for Beryl, especially with his sharp new sword. However, a group attacked him all at once. Thankfully, Visel and Kiruni arrived just in time to help him handle the knights. Beryl then proceeded inside the church, where the bishop and his most formidable knights awaited him. The bishop chanted, presenting a miracle as the coffins next to him moved, and the dead bodies inside opened their eyes. Among them was Freya's sister, wearing a necklace identical to the one Freya had lost. Enraged at this desecration, not a miracle, Beryl mercilessly killed the reanimated bodies, which disintegrated into soul fire upon contact with his sword. Eventually, only Freya's sister was left. Holding her gently, Beryl apologized before decisively beheading her. As the clouds dispersed and moonlight shone through, Freya's sister completely vanished, leaving only the necklace. The real battle began then. The knight facing Beryl was far stronger than the others, forcing Beryl to retreat despite his injuries. Yet, his respect for life made him refuse to show mercy. He switched from defense to offense, exploiting a fleeting weakness in the knight to strike multiple blows, finally piercing the knight's chest. As the knight stood up despite severe injuries, he muttered about sacrifices for miracles before collapsing and dying from his wounds. Beryl didn't understand such pursuits, and found Ficelle and Kiruni had already arrested the bishop outside, who showed no remorse, claiming the church needed to grow stronger to save the kingdom, and that miracles were more important than bloodshed. Beryl didn't dwell on these words, regretting only that he couldn't preserve Freya's sister's body. Lucy, sensing his feelings, led him to a house, calling it his reward. Inside, Freya was cleaning, having agreed to attend school but not wanting to live with Lucy anymore. Instead, she wanted to live with Beryl, who was now her guardian. Lucy and Beryl had demonstrated to Freya that not all adults were bad, and Beryl was about to start living with the young girl.